It's a fascinating thing. The Talmud says that God created the world with 10 sayings. Right? If you look at Bereshis Bara Elokim, there's 10 sayings. Right? So the Talmud asks, why 10? Why just do one? Like, world, poof. Like a Harry Potter movie. Right? So it says because it's to reward the Siddiq and the righteous that build the world, save the world that was built with 10 sayings, and to punish the evil that destroy the world with 10 sayings. Now, what on earth does that mean? So you see, NASA has an express saying that there's no when you in outer space. The first astronauts that they sent up got into such a mess because the simplest thing, like screwing a screw in outer space, becomes incredibly difficult when you've got no gravity to hold yourself against. So they have this saying that there is no problem you can get into in outer space that if you don't know what you're doing will get really bad really quickly. So the simplest things like brushing your teeth, going to the bathroom, eating, screwing something in, the simplest things have to be trained on Earth of what it's like in zero gravity. And they do all kinds of things. They put them in swimming pools and all kinds of stuff to kind of get the feel of how you have to think things through. The simplest things in outer space. So what does that got to do with anything? Because you're not supposed to live in outer space. God made the world in such a way that there's buffers. You have to cross 10 layers before you mess up your life. Nobody is homeless. Like they left high school and they're homeless. There's no such thing. I'm not saying there aren't people who left high school and they're homeless, but what it is they went from stage to stage to stage to stage, and they're finally homeless. Right? No one got divorced. Like, I don't know, I came home and it was it. You know, what's her name? Lillian Vernon. I don't know if you remember Lillian Vernon. Lillian Vernon was the mail order queen. She was called the mail order queen. She used to send out this mail order in the days of mail and everything. And she used to send out these mail order catalogs. And she was known as the mail order queen, Jewish woman. And one time we were doing a mail order thing for Pesach, a mail order kit. And I didn't know how to do mail order, so I bought her book, How to Do Mail Order, right? And I'm reading the whole book, and you got to buy this, and you got to add this, and you got to. It was an interesting book. And then halfway through the book, she says, one day my son walked into my office. He worked in the firm, in the business. And he said to me, Mom, I'm leaving the company and I never ever want to speak to you another day of my life. Don't ever call me. I don't want anything to do with you. She writes this in one paragraph. And she writes, I have no idea what was the problem, but it's his life. What can I do? Something to that effect. I don't remember exactly. It was already years ago. And I'm thinking to myself, this woman can spend a chapter on a handbag, and she can spend a paragraph on her son. Obviously, that's the problem. It's not possible that your son would walk into your office and say, I never want to see it, unless he's been telling you for a very long time, we've got problems. Right? It's just people don't want to hear the problems. The Talmud says a very strange thing. It says, 2 mitzvahs that never did happen. Ben Sora, that means if you have a child who's rebellious at a particular age, just before 13 years old, and does certain things, he steals, he drinks, and various other things, at this age, you take him and stone him. Right? Ben Sora. And in the Dachas, a whole Jewish city that turns to idol worship. So it says there's 2 mitzvahs that never happen. But with the Ben Sora, it says even more strange. It says it never will happen.
Why not?
Well, so the Talmud says, well, if it never will happen, you don't have to have a mitzvah in the Torah that, if Martians come and they want to know which side of the spaceship they put the mezuzah, you don't have to, the Talmud doesn't, there's no mitzvah in the Torah like that. right? Because it's mitzvah for things that mitzvahs are meant to be practical. Like, this is what you do. The mitzvah is something that never will happen. Right? So near Nedachas, it never did happen, but it could happen. God forbid. But Ben Sora, it not only never did happen, but it never will happen. So the Talmud says, so what is it that, what do we go for? So therefore, it's coming to teach you parenting, because there are some things in life, it's easier to teach you what not to do. It's like running a nuclear submarine. These are the things you shouldn't do. Anything that's a big red button, don't press it. It's pretty simple, right? You can do anything you want, but just don't touch the big red button, right? So in parenting, it's sort of like that, right? These are the things you shouldn't do. So it's coming to tell you that to mess up your child so badly that the only thing we're left for us to do is to kill him. Why do we kill a child in such a position? Because there's no hope for the child. It is being raised in the worst possible way, so therefore there's no hope for the child. The only thing we can do is kill him. Why do we, like, you so to speak, take a painting, if you're working on a painting or a project, you're building a house, let's say, and you mess it up so badly, they say the only thing that's left for you to do is to tear it down and start all over again. You've got too many problems, right? So the same thing with the child. So the Talmud says, no one messed up that badly. You can't mess up that badly. It never will happen. Never did happen, never will happen. There's no such thing. You cannot mess up your children that badly. Right? Now, can you mess them up fairly badly? Okay, you can do, which ties into another an interesting thing, right? You can't mess up your children. There are three things you can't mess up: yourself, your children, your marriage. You can't mess these three things up, right? And where do we learn that from? Anybody want to take a guess? So you see, when the Jewish people come to Mount Sinai, Parshas Yisro, what's the first thing? God calls Moshe up to the mountain. He's 80 years old. He goes to the top of Mount Sinai. And what's the first thing he says?
Who says, Moshe or Hashem?
No, Hashem.
But, I don't know.
It's a fascinating thing. I've asked this question many times. People don't know. Right? Because the story is so powerful and so dramatic. The thing that people remember is the Ten Commandments. This sort of side story gets sort of relegated to the back dark corners of our memory. You should look it up.
About the rings where people should not be going past.
Very good. He tells Moshe, go down the mountain and tell them not to cross the rings. Very good. The problem with that is he already told them when he was down at the bottom of the mountain. God came to Moshe and told him, tell people not to cross over the rings. And that's what Moshe tells God. He says, I already told them, I don't need to go down. So what's this like?
Go.
What?
And Hashem says, go?
He says, go. What's this like? It's like your husband calls you, right? And when you get this, is when you're in the kitchen, can you bring me a banana? I was just in the kitchen. Why'd you tell me to come here, slip all this way to get a banana? Why didn't you tell me when I was in the kitchen? I got to go all the way to the kitchen now to get you a banana. You understand? Well, this is like that because God tells Moshe to come all the way up to the top. He's 80 years old. No cable car, no stairs, no nothing. He's got to climb a mountain. Right? He gets all the way to the top and he tells him, right, go back down and tell the Jewish people not to cross the boundaries. Like, why didn't you tell me when I was at the bottom of the mountain? I already told them this. So it's hard to understand what Moshe's argument is. Because if God's telling Moshe to go down to the bottom of the mountain, it's for one reason and one reason only. What's that?
Because he knows that people need to get an extra warning.
Right, because he knows that if you don't tell them, they're going to cross the boundary. Now, how does God know that?
Because he's God.
Because he's God. He can see the future. He knows what's going to happen. You understand? So I don't understand Moshe's argument.
If his argument, what's the point? I've already told them. How's it going to help for me to say it again?
Right. That's his argument. I don't understand Moshe's argument. God's telling you to go. Why? Because, you understand? Because God knows something you don't know. What's that? Then they're going to do it. You follow?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so now here's your killer question. You ready? Put down any sharp objects. So why didn't God do that with the golden calf?
Because he wanted them to mess up.
Because he wanted them to do it. You get it?
Wait a minute, the same thing with the spies then.
The same thing with the spies. Right? In other words,
It's not that he wanted them, he willed it then.
you see, it says, you let your kids play with the Lego. Do you want them to mess it up? No. But if they mess it up, are you okay? Yes. Now, what about your cut glass china? Cut glass and china. No, they're not playing with that. God won't let you play with things that you can mess up. There's 10 layers. He's not going to let you mess up things. You understand? He'll let you mess up things, but things that, you can put together back as Lego. You can put them all back together again. Crossing the boundary, that would have been something that they could not have put back together again. So God says, this is not going to happen.
So if Hashem's sending Moshe back down the mountain to warn you again, it's because he's serious and you better listen. So they end up listening.
They do it, right? They follow. But you said that's but it's telling. Why is it right there just before the Ten Commandments and Parshas Yisro? Because with all the Ten Commandments and everything, you've got to know this thing, right? You can't mess up. God's not letting you mess up. You can get into some very sticky situations, but the process of getting in and getting out is part of the game. That's part of the process. It's sort of like you give your kid a bike to ride, right? Are they going to fall down?
Of course.
Well, why'd you give it to them? They can't succeed. No, that is the success. The success is falling down, getting up, and figuring it out. That's the success. Not getting it right, falling down, getting up, and getting it right. That's the success.
So you're saying if you mess up in parenting, that's part of what God wants you to learn.
You can only mess up in things that you can fix, 100%. It's part of the process. What?
It should really give us a sense of comfort that we don't have to be so neurotic.
Who are you talking to now?
Right? I mean,
Present company not included.
It's all about giving you neurosis, whereas what you're saying is, no, you don't need to be neurotic. You just have to put some effort in and do the best you can, and don't worry about the rest.
That's it. What's that?
They know that you will mess up.
You will mess up. That's right. But we don't really mess up, right? We don't really mess up. You can't mess.
Mistakes were meant to be.
Right. But when you fall off the bicycle, that's pretty bad. But it's not messing up. That's part of the process. We're good?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
That was great.
Thank you.